Hi, Kristen.
Hi, how are you?
How are you?
Good.
Are you and I the only ones on?
So far, yes.
Well, what do you think we should talk about?
We'll see if Scott can get on tonight.
Yeah, right, exactly. We need him.
Exactly.
So I sign up, you set us up with Zoom, I'm assuming. Is that correct?
Lauren sets the, oh, there's Scott. Lauren sets the Zoom up,
Scott?
and then she just makes me alternate host.
Gotcha.
So you got on tonight.
Yay! Can I leave now?
Yeah,
Only if all of us can, Scott.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
God. The struggle is definitely real.
Oh my God. It's awful.
Well, you do board meetings with this as well, right? With Zoom? They do the,
Yeah, I do this, I do the library and inland wetlands too.
Lucky you.
lucky you, yeah.
Yeah.
Go to the movie? Did you guys go to the movie?
Scott, my family went, my grandkids went, and they loved it.
Good.
Absolutely loved it. I was going to mention that tonight before we even started. It was great. It was,
Got the concert? We have the concert Friday.
yeah, they're going to go to that too.
God knows. We're gonna have to plow the
Yeah, right.
plow the lot,
Out of the
but
field.
Yeah, a little snow we're supposed to get.
yeah.
But
But
it was crowded. It was very well done. It was very well organized. You know, there was food there, I guess. I guess you had pretzels and
yeah, we had the hot dog guy.
popcorn. Yeah.
Hot dog guy with hot dogs, hamburgers, and
Very
he,
well-
he did the concerts
Very,
on the green as well. So real class act. So
yeah. Any more planned for the year or next year?
not at this point.
IMP.
Hello.
I mean, obviously we'll keep on doing things, but
Yeah. They really enjoyed it.
good. AMP.
Hello.
Hello.
ANP.
Hey, Pete.
Got everybody here except Rob. Time.
Now you got video. Now you got audio, Pete.
I do. I spent too much time on Zoom. I should know better.
Yeah. I mean, basically, I mean, what tonight is, before Rob gets on, I mean, it's kind of looking at an overview of the summer and the good and the bad, and where we can improve or draw back. So, I mean, you were obviously key to the operations at the beach. So, you know, we value your input. I did invite David as well as Rob for his views on what happened at East Wharf. And hopefully this summer is not going to be a repeat. I'm hoping that we all go back to normal, whichever that is. Wherever our normal is, we'll find it. But normal operations, wouldn't be as intense as we were this past summer. And I know I threw you into the lurch, and I definitely appreciate all the work that you did. And I'm glad you came back after working on the maintenance crew and doing everything, and coming back as an adult. It really worked out well for us, and was a really relaxing moment having you on board for the beach operations. lessened my anxiety going into it. And I sincerely appreciate all your efforts. So
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate your words. And you're right. It was an interesting summer. I'm not sure if you want me to speak to it, but what I can say is I don't think we've ever seen anything quite like what we went through. I would imagine this summer, you know, I'm working in schools right now, and we're expecting to be at a pretty high level when we go back in January, and I think we're going to taper off. And you know, I don't know where we're going to be, but we're going to have to look to the state, to the town. I think we're going to be somewhere of a hybrid, you know,
Sure.
by the time Memorial Day rolls around, and I would expect we're going to have some of those same restrictions in place that we did during the summer, but you know, who knows? I hope, you know, as a teacher, we all get vaccinated, but you know, there's certainly a lot of things we could look at and to try to improve. I don't know if you have a specific agenda. I did see a little bit, you know, about what you want to talk about, or
Hey, Peter, it's Rob.
hey, Rob.
Absolutely, we'll do that. And Scott, thanks for kicking it off. So we'll call this meeting to order at 7:04. Kristen, thanks for joining and working behind the scenes and getting us on board. And thank you everyone for joining. We attempted to do this last week, and Scott had commitments based on a legal case that the town was managing through, and we didn't get David, and Rob couldn't join. So Peter, thank you so much for joining. Just a couple of announcements, and then we'll get into our meeting. So the purpose for the meeting this evening is to review last year's season and really to hear from the entire group what worked well, what do we need to be thinking about. I don't know that we're going to get through a lot of the details of solving the issues, but there's a couple key things that we want to make sure that we are either learning about, saying yes or no to, or at least stating what requires more work. So that's what we'll do. So a couple of announcements just as we kick things off, and then we'll get into it. And Peter, we're going to actually let you and then Scott kind of speak freely. You'll have the floor just to talk about what you were pleased about, where we need more attention, what needs to be fixed, and then we'll have Q&A on that. And you don't need to stay for the whole meeting, but we want to make sure that both you and Scott have a chance to really allow us to listen. So with that said, I do want to just capture for the group a couple things that the group should be aware of. So the town, and I'm going to ask Scott to speak and add any comments to this. So the town elected to offer a retirement program for certain employees based on their tenure, and that did Scott qualified for that. I know Scott has spoken with everyone, so Scott is opted in for that, and there's a lot of details that we just don't have the answers to, and Scott and I were chatting today, going back and forth, and Scott's going to stay on when this becomes effective in a consultative role, and to help with that clarity on what is truth and what is factual, and how to do that. So I just wanted to make sure that, you know, that came up at the Board of Selectmen meeting last night, and you know, Scott, on behalf of the entire commission, and I don't speak for everyone, and I'll let everyone speak, but your career and tenure here and what you've done and what you've seen through has been impressive, and we'll have more time for accolades, but we're going to lean on you for your insights, and I know we'll get more information. To that end, Peggy will be joining our meeting in January just to check in with us as she does on a regular basis, and I think there'll be a better opportunity as we have more information then, and that is for Tuesday, January 5th. So Scott, just any comments that you feel would be appropriate, just update the group, or if there's any questions anyone has?
It's been a real dance. Basically what it is, okay, as of June 30th, I will be leaving as far as full-time employment, and then for the next year I will be doing part-time work to help with transition. The department's going to be going through a change. We don't know what that change is going to be. Right now they're looking at combining the seniors services commission and the recreation commission as one department. So Austin Hall would be in charge of the department, and we're still working out all that minutia as to who's doing what, how it's going to work. Will it work? That's the other big question, because as you know, the recreation department is a big lion, and it may be difficult, but I think we can do it. Austin was with me for over almost 10 years before he left to go to grow, and he came back to town, and I think he can do the job, but it's what is going to be expected. I just don't, I still have questions, and Austin and I still have to do a lot of groundwork to figure everything out, to make sure that it all goes smoothly, and that, like Pete and, David, are not left in the lurch, as well as the grounds crew. We have to make sure that everything is all set, that it's an easily done or not so easy transition, because we as a department have grown exponentially over the years, taking on more and more, not only with the grounds, but with Bower, Saw Meadow, and Rockland. Everything's grown so much, and we just got to make sure that we're all set to move forward into the next realm of what's going to go on. So I will be working with Austin to figure things out, and hopefully we'll come to a positive resolution that all things will work. So that's where I'm at. But I will be around. I'm not just disappearing. As Rob indicated, I am full-time through June 30th, and then I will be part-time for another year. So to help with projects that we have in line and trying to help things moving forward. So that's where I'm at.
Well, we appreciate that, Scott, and I think it certainly gives a good lens for the purpose. We were having this meeting either way, but in preparation for next year, which we feel like we just got through the summer program, it's important to match what you've put on the table tonight about doing things well and smoothly. Any comments from Pam or Vince, MP?
Well, I'll comment first. I think, first of all, I think Scott's going to be tough to replace. As you all know, I know Scott for over the 42 years he's been in that office. He's done an incredible job, and as the years have gone on, I've seen him take on more and more responsibility, and do the job extremely well. And I was always impressed with the amount of balls he could put in the air and not let anything drop. So I compliment you on a job well done. And as I said, I think it's going to be, your shoes are going to be tough to fill. My other comment is this public knowledge at this point or not?
What's public knowledge is the Board of Selectmen spoke last night about the plans, and that Scott has opted to participate in what was offered to him. And just out of fairness and full transparency to this group, just to make sure that we had a chance to acknowledge it. And then, Peggy will give us some more information in January.
I mean, that's all I have to say. It's going to be tough to find another Scott Erskine.
Thanks, Vince.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Pam, MP, anything?
I'm happy to, I guess I was just thinking, how many people are we going to have to hire to replace Scott? Because there are just so many jobs. And I think from the moment that I started on this board, I found myself thinking, oh my goodness, it is so extensive, so broad, so many, as Vince said, so many balls up in the air at the same time. And I just thank you, Scott, for getting through them. I know it's been difficult. I know that the recreation environment has changed. I think, you know, you've tried to deal with a lot of the issues and with the public with grace and, you know, to be courteous in the face of some of the incivility that we've had to deal with over the years. You know, thank you for weathering all of that. And I feel like we still have 6 more months and then some time after that. So it's not, this isn't goodbye. So, but yes, thank you. I think you are leaving some very difficult shoes to fill.
Thanks. And I do have I have a great staff. There is a lot of depth, and I'm sure the community will still be well served in whatever capacity we end up doing, but they are a good group. So thank you.
And I'm glad that they've, you know, I think that you've been able to do that through your leadership of the department. So I think, again, it's a good group, and that's a tribute to you as well. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Pam. Anything, MP, you want to add?
Yeah, I'm just echoing everything that Pam and Vince have mentioned, and you know, it's going to be hard to match commitment and dedication and experience, resourcefulness, and but well deserved, a well deserved rest ahead, or new adventures ahead, or whatever, you know, you choose to take on. And yeah, I'm confident that the staff is going to step up and, you know, move everything forward. And yeah, thank you. And let's go forward.
Thanks. Thank you.
Scott, to that point, every time, you know, I know that I personally have pushed you, and every time I come into your office with an agenda, you never knew what the agenda was, but there wasn't a question I wouldn't ask that you weren't able to turn around and say, here it is, here it is. And I just, the volume of what you've had to manage and your arms around it, it's, you know, it'll be hard to appreciate, but having you around to support that transition is going to be critical. And I think as a commission, you know, we're trying to understand more and more, as Pam and MP have alluded, and Vince, that the job has changed and we're trying to figure out how to do more. So thank you for your patience, and you've worked really well with us, and just personally, thank you for that.
Thanks.
So, so we'll get more information next month from Peggy. Also next month, our meeting on January 5th is elections. And what we usually do at our December meeting is we would talk about our intention. And given that that's not on the agenda, I think that, you know, if there's anyone that's planning not to stay on, out of courtesy, if you could share that with the group. If there's anyone that would like to, you know, post for an office, I think sharing it with the group would be important. But we will do that on our January 5th meeting. And speaking with Leanne, appointments are being made, and that'll happen quickly in January. So those are really just what I wanted to put on the radar for everyone. And now we'll move into the meeting. I see David has joined. David, I see that you're on mute and off your camera. That's fine. You don't need to be on your camera, but if you do want to speak, you'll need to be off mute. We're going to open with asking Pete.
Linda's here too.
Yep, and Linda is here as well. I apologize for that. I'm looking on not a full screen here. Thanks for joining, Linda. So we're going to ask Pete to start. We'll go to David. We'll go to Linda. and we'll go to Scott. And we will give everyone up to 15 minutes to share what worked, what were you happy about, and what areas that you weren't happy about or you think we need to focus in on. And then we'll just listen and we'll ask some questions. And we may get some duplication, but I think, Linda, David, and Pete, you guys all offer different perspective. And then certainly Scott, the reason you'll bring up the rear is maybe some of it will already be noticed or discussed in discussion. And then after that, we'll kind of go through our list and say, where do we need to make sure we're either making changes or what requires more discussion. And this is an open discussion. So if we end up needing to go in a certain direction, it's our meeting to do that. So by all means, let's do it. So again, Pete, thanks for joining. If we'll just open it up again, what were you pleased with and what would you suggest we focus on?
Wow, that's a big question. And first, I do
I'll
want
let
to
you know
say,
when
Pete, it's a double barrel
problem.
shotgun, so watch out.
just a reminder, I'm a seasonal employee, just here for this. Anyway, I do want to say congratulations to Scott as well. I did first work for the town. This is my second turn with the town 37 years ago when I was 16 years old and Scott was my boss. So as I now approach almost 54 years old and Scott is still with the town, it's really a remarkable career that you've had, Scott. So kudos to you for a job well done. And I know that everyone has said, and you have not aged a day in those 40 something years you've served the town, which is truly remarkable. So
Thanks.
honestly, I think you look the same when I remembered you as a 16-year-old. So it's a very daunting question that you've asked, since I was trying to get my head around the whole idea, what exactly this job entails. Pam mentioned a couple things about, interactions with the town, and my approach, and I think David would back me up on this, was that we were to be, our job was to be courteous and in the face of very difficult circumstances, and to what I viewed the job was to take an ever expanding and changing environment. The ground is sort of shifting underneath us, and to try to, number one, work with a very able team. I leaned heavily on David and in order to kind of, and a few others that were, great in terms of training me. They were the ones sort of leading me, but also just working with the team and to try to understand what the expectations were and how we could then deliver to be courteous and also to be firm with the expectations of the town regulations, the ordinances, and what the COVID ordinances that kind of constantly were shifting as Peggy would come, as things would constantly change. We were always sort of listening and trying to adapt and adjust, and then trying to educate the town and the residents about what exactly is going on. That was a daunting task, and I don't know that how well we did that, but I know we attempted, and we always. My idea or my feeling was, as a blue shirt, as the town people perceive us, the idea that we were there for their safety and not just in terms of enforcement was a critical idea. That they should trust us and not sort of. I was concerned about the reputation that previous to the previous year. From what I understand, some of the policies were not well received by the townspeople, and I wasn't here at the time, but the parking enforcement was a bit of a disaster. So we were sort of recovering from that perception as well. What worked really well was working with people like David and actually sort of having this team approach where these young folks, and I can't say enough about the kids that work for the town. They are truly, they're hardworking kids. They work 40, 50 hours a week. And they do take some incivility in the front lines and did so. And they did so with grace, and they had to make quick decisions. And what I think we do really well was react to situations, to parking situations, to emergency situations, to COVID situations. I feel like we were very responsive when when the fire marshal came in and they were taking water samples, and I'll never forget David running out and thinking that they were actually looking for someone who might, perhaps a drowning victim. But procedurally, we were well trained, or we trained well, and we were well trained to respond to very, constant variables on the water, on the grounds, with Hammonasset. What I felt challenged with specifically was communication. The communication piece as to what was expected on a day-to-day basis, a platform to communicate with the townspeople clearly that wasn't the sort of the town website, which we drove a lot of people to check out the website. This is where we need to go. However, people simply didn't know about the shifting regulations. And I feel like we needed to have a place to go where people would know to go to find out what's actually going on today. What are the parking restrictions for the day? What's the status in terms of a number of, are there picnic tables available? Are there fire pits available? Are grills available? I felt like there was that shift caused some consternation from the residents. They weren't sure, and they often would get upset when they came to expect something and it wasn't available to them. And so I didn't feel like we had a great handle on how to communicate broadly. I know there was a phone chain that went out a few times. I know that exists, but that seemed to be a very ineffective tool as far as how we communicate with the people of the town that want to use the facilities. And I think that also was usually the reason we had conflict, or a resident would be very unhappy with us because someone would come and they expected to be able to park for the day, and they called and they thought they understood what was expected, and they got here and something changed. And I think that happened a few times, and those little incidents were stressful for when they cropped up. And so, if I could start over again, if I could say to anyone, I would love to know, I mentioned, I drove this by Scott a few times just to say, hey, why don't we have an Instagram page where we have a daily report where we have a daily beach report that people could go and see, here's our status. Here are the tides, here's what we're doing today. And then, David could give a daily update. So and the townspeople would just click on and follow the Instagram page and see what was happening, where we were as a community, and what the residents would then know. These are the parking rules for the day. And I felt like that part could certainly help. And I'm mindful of the time. I don't want to ramble on, but I think in summary, that would be those are the two areas: the strengths and the challenges.
Pete, that's great. And the time constraint is designed to get to what really bubbles up here, but we'll have a chance now. I mean, does anyone have any questions that you want to get clarified to Pete's comments? Yeah, these were great. Okay, so there's no questions. I just want to clarify, just to capture this, maybe Kristen will help as well. Your view was courteous in the face of difficult circumstances, that you viewed the role to educate the town. You had a very able team. You were there for safety, not just enforcement. You personally, as a team, need to know clear expectations and ordinances, and that translates over to the communication piece for our residents. You were aware and concerned about perception. The team worked really well together. The kids were really great despite the adversity they faced, and you guys reacted well to situations. And you were well trained, and you trained people well, and opportunities were communication and how do we get that information to the residents. Shifting regulations made things challenging, and the suggestion around a daily Instagram update to have real-time updates is great. Did I get it, Pete? Does that summarize what you hit?
That's the way I view it. And again, Instagram, a platform for a daily update, was what I was suggesting.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I do agree with all that. It's just the town just doesn't react as fast as that.
No, I
And
know.
we have to work at that, especially given the circumstances that we're under right now. And hopefully,
Right.
hopefully things try to get back to a normal pattern.
No, I know.
Um,
Yeah, Scott. I guess my comments were not more an inherent criticism of
No,
how the town communicates. I was just saying if we could drive the community to a place that I find that the website to be a little clunky and hard to navigate sometimes.
yes.
And I
Yep.
think other residents would agree. It's just,
Yep.
you know, there's a lot of information on it, but it's not as user friendly as you would like it to be. So my suggestion
Agreed.
was simply, you know,
That-
we're dealing in the 21st century and everyone follows, you know, Facebook. Well, Facebook more so. I'd say Instagram would have been that kind of platform would provide, you know, if we could get around all the pieces that we talked about this summer when I suggested it.
Yep.
That all needs to be worked out, but that would be my ideal. But you know, obviously, seasonal employee, just trying to look at, you know, what could be better. You know, how could this be better?
And I agree. I agree 100%, Pete. You
And
know,
using the
we
town
just got to
website-
figure it out.
Using the town website has an inherent delay in it because it has
Yes.
to go through from the people on site to the town webmaster, and then it has to get posted. So there's an inherent time lapse in that process. If we could get the staff on site set up and approved, and I imagine Art will have some thoughts on this, to post and eliminate the middleman in that process, that would help.
Right.
As long as there's some clear understandings of what can and cannot be posted and how often things can and cannot be posted, that might eliminate that lag and give a little bit more up to the minute information.
Agreed.
So I think it's definitely something to look into.
Yep.
And then, I think we need to assume that all of the policies and restrictions that we ended the season on are probably going to be where we're going to start next year. And then the changes are going to probably be loosening restrictions rather than continually adding and changing restrictions, which is what you faced, throughout this past summer.
One would hope.
One would hope.
Absolutely.
We gotta start practical and be optimistic towards it,
And hopefully Hammonasset will cooperate.
Yeah.
But Pete, go ahead, Vince.
I was just going to suggest or comment on the, when you made the turn on West Wharf Road to get down to two beaches, the Surf Club and the West Wharf Beach, there seemed to be a lot of congestion and a lot of, problematic areas. I'm wondering if you can intercept folks coming from US 1, somehow communicating to them that, the parking is full or the beach is closed or whatever. We want to communicate and work with the golf course, and see if you can't do something to intercept that bottleneck, if you will, and eliminate some of what we were facing last year.
Vince, we ended up, I thought, which was effective, and I can't speak to how the bottleneck on West Wharf Road went, but what was very effective was when we sent our team to the end of the Surf Club Road and started there. We are kind of stretched even in that, we basically have to shut down and take people out of roles and, shut the office down. In other words, we were shuffling and spreading our staff quite thin just to get them to the end of the road. And so my concern is if we were to put them all the way to Route 1, that would even delay further our ability to turn it around. And I felt like the amount of time that we did shut down the beach due to capacity, which I imagine, as Mary Pat was saying, that we're going to start with a capacity in mind as we did last time, and we'll do our counts. And with knowing that we need to shut down, we were able to effectively shut down for an hour and a half, and almost without fail reopen and have I don't think we ever closed for the day. We we did close for like, I think, David, maybe you can help me with this. We closed for
2
which-
hours.
2 hours.
2 hours, I think, was maybe max.
I think
I think it was 2 hours. I think was the longest we ever had. There was, and that was one time. At most,
Yeah.
it was an hour ever for like on average.
I think I think what we decided is once we close, we were going to close for at least an hour.
Yep.
Because that was also an important concept that we weren't doing like, counting in and counting out. So those are things those are practices that we kind of learned about, our best practices for how to manage the parking without putting the staff too thin or spreading us too thin. Bringing us all the way out to Route 1, I think would be harder as well.
Yeah, I don't think in practicality, I don't think we could really go out to Route 1. I mean,
Yeah, I feel like it would be a
Surf Club Road
safety
is it.
issue.
Yeah. That's the beach road.
Yeah.
And the signs that the police department had gotten for the town, I mean, they're not that reactive to say, okay, parking's closed because we can't, the police department couldn't, and we can't go, they have to be programmed. So the company has to come in to change the wording on the sign. So, I mean, Jack did a great job of getting the signs at Middle Beach and everything at State Park. He got all those signs in, but we just can't be like quick. We have to change the verbiage on the signs. The company has to come in and do it. And hopefully that's not going to happen this year. We did as Pete had mentioned, we got the sawhorses and the signage at the end of Surf Club Road, which helped immensely because we pulled and as Pete said, we pulled people out to get to the end of the road to say, yeah, we're closed. And as David mentioned, yeah, we were 2 hours max that we ended up closing because of capacity. And I think a lot of that is community education, because we did have a lot of people that did not understand why we were closing, including some of the beachfront operation. We had to monitor what was going on the beach as far as space and everything else, and people just did not understand that. We have a park that had over 500 spaces. We were at 25, 30%, maybe 50% capacity. And when you have the tides change, people come down there at low tide, all the space in the world, and then the tide's coming in. And all of a sudden, yeah, okay, everybody's got to be 15 feet away from each other, and they don't understand why we're closing it.
It's a teeny tiny beach at high tide.
So I mean, a lot of that is the education, and I know that's what the state was dealing with. But in all honesty, they didn't really help us at all, even though Peggy tried with the state to try to get help, but they were at 25, 30% of their capacity. And that just drove everybody to Google beach, and it came to us.
Beach near me.
So
Beach near me, yeah.
this is really great discussion. I would say this falls under educating the town. I don't, to be there when the volume of people show up, the idea of high tide, and then what does that mean to this, and why we're doing it? What does that mean to the staff? And I think this is a great opportunity for us to say, these were some key learnings. And to MP's comment,
Absolutely.
we're going to start being very, plan as if, and hopefully we we pull back on restrictions. We just don't know yet.
And
And I think there's some good ideas there. So David, you've joined as well. I'd like to give you the floor to kind of speak from your perspective as broadly as you'd like. I know you had waterfront responsibility, but I'd like you to have an opportunity to share with all of us what worked really well, what were you really happy about, what do we need to keep doing, and where did we maybe miss, or where do you feel we need to focus and make sure things are in place for next year?
Hi, everybody. Just want to say hello.
You're kind of in a dark hole. You're kind of in a dark hole there, David.
Yeah. I'm in the middle of driving from Old Saybrook back home to New Haven, and
Oh boy.
I'm sitting at a rest stop so you guys can see and actually hear. Yeah. But I'm here, and congratulations, Scott. It's been great working with you. So I mean, as far as last season went, I mean, we were dealing with the COVID monster that everybody knows that. I think that we all handled it very well as we could. A couple key things that I think that weren't missed but could definitely be worked on would be, the biggest for me would be communication between like the blue shirts and the lifeguarding staff. I feel like for the most part it worked out in the end, but the way that the old staff felt when they heard the lifeguards were coming on was that they no longer had to pay any attention past the seawall. Like they had free reign to kind of just forget about it, and that caused not problems but a lot of manpower issues right from the get-go, especially on days where there were no lifeguards at the beginning of the season.
Gotcha.
So the security side, from my perception, I don't know, I mean, Pete, you can chime in if you saw the same thing, but it kind of felt like they felt as though the sand wasn't their problem anymore. But that kind of solved itself throughout the season as we educated our own staff. I mean, I agree with Pete as far as everything he said in terms of educating the town and, kind of helping residents understand why we're doing things. I felt like, especially when it came to parking, people would just see empty spots when we're shutting down. And as we were all just saying, it's more about, space on the beach and the tide coming in, and we can't fit any more people coming in, even though the whole rest of the park is empty, because we can't demand that someone tell us where they're going. And they're all going to lie anyways, just to get in. I mean, and that's hard. And it did create a bottleneck, Vince, up at the top of right at that like connection with Surf Club Road and West Wharf. But I think that a lot of that does stem mostly from people viewing it as though it's their beach and they can get in there and they'll wait until we open back up. And the staff did a very good job of trying to push along. But I mean, without, the police standing there backing us up, it's very hard to convince someone who thinks that they don't have to move. And I think that that's most of where the bottleneck came from, because once you'd get the couple cars that were stagnant right at that crossroads, the blockage kind of moved itself along. I will say that the staffing wise, I feel like we were much better this year than we were last year in terms of like being short staffed. I never felt as though we were this year, whereas last year people would call out or whatever would happen. And I think a large part of that might be due to the fact that we did have lifeguards, but regardless to what the cause is, we fixed it. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Pete as to everything he touched, and I don't want to waste everybody's time just repeating that all again.
I mean, I think the lifeguard staff did an excellent job. I'm glad we got them back, and hopefully they'll all come back.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm fingers crossed for that.
And I know we had a couple of hiccups, and hopefully we can replace the hiccups.
Yeah,
and so be even stronger.
Yeah,
this summer. So
specifically on the waterfront side, I mean, there was definitely stuff that I have to clean up regarding next year. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely.
David, like what? And you don't have to get into gory details, but thematically, where would you focus?
So I do think that East Wharf specifically poses a large issue in terms of where the lifeguards, where the town wants the lifeguards to be looking. I mean, and from the way I thought it was the beginning of the year, they're only looking at that one side of the beach that the chair's on. And then people were complaining on the on the boat beach
Both
side,
sides.
East Wharf, that they, the lifeguards are there, they got to look at that side. And that poses not only like a liability issue, but also just a manpower issue. I mean, I only have 2 guards at East Wharf. And if they're looking at the boat beach side, that splits them up in a way that they can't cover. That it's spread way too thin to be covering that much beach, just in terms of visibility. Like 2 people, safety wise, could handle it, but visibility wise, there's just no way you could see the whole thing with 2 people.
Do you need secondary stands
So, I mean,
for the boat beach?
If you want boat beach to be guarded, yeah. And then I personally, if it's in the budget, would feel more comfortable with 3 guards if you want that to be guarded. Just because if you're going to have 2 stands, you need 2 guards to be there. And then at some point they have to get off. I mean, you can't stare at the same patch of water for 8 hours and be vigilant.
True.
Okay, good feedback.
Talking about staffing 1 extra guard and a rotation of 3.
Yeah. And I mean, it worked with 2. It's just the problem becomes when you want the lifeguards to watch, like, for actions on the boat beach side.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're going to have them watch, I mean, you can't have it would be a hard thing to manage if you have kayakers coming in and out, and
Sure.
what exactly is allowed over there.
Yeah.
I mean, historically, the rules are a little bit more lax on the boat beach side because, I mean, people have life vests on when they're going out into to go kayak, and they have it's a little bit more hectic on that side of the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Not impossible to do, but there would have to be a little bit more like clearly defined roles and rules as to like what the difference is. I feel as though I was doing a good job trying to make sure that my staff knew what they were responsible for and what they weren't. I just think that at some point the public wanted the guards to be doing both jobs, but there just wasn't enough support for them to do both jobs.
Well, I think we've always looked at the boat side of East Wharf similar to the boat beach at West.
Yeah.
The parents are watching their kids, good or bad, with the boats at West, but that's not a swimming area.
Yeah.
We've done studies where, that's not a swimming area, so we're not going to guard it. It's posted. And West Wharf has a little triangle on the Madison Beach Hotel side, and the town area is so small, it's not valued as a guarded beach.
Yeah.
So basically the boat beach on East Wharf is pretty much the same as the boat beach on West. It's parents are watching their kids. No, there's not mooring posts or anything, but it's basically a boating area, not a swimming area.
Yeah. And I mean, I agree with that. I don't personally see it as though it needs to be guarded, or
Right.
that we, I don't think that we were short in not guarding that area. It just came to the point where, like if someone had a ball on that side, it was expected that the guards would have seen it and gone over and taken care of it. And if they're gonna be split up and they're watching the rules on one side, then, if they got their feet in the sand on that side, something happens, the public is going to expect them to react, and they don't have their equipment over there. They don't have the second guard to help. That's where it falls apart. I don't personally think that we should have a guard on that side of the beach, but if we're not going to have a guard on that side of the beach, then it comes to the gate staff and, if there's patrol there to take care of that rather than relying on the lifeguards.
Yeah.
No.
And how does that jive with the policy of guarding the boat beach at the surf club?
So, I mean, as far as guarding boat beach went, that was all. I mean, there wasn't lifeguards on boat beach at surf club.
Right.
I mean, and they had no responsibility over there. I mean, if anything were to happen, I mean, obviously we would have responded and helped in any way that we could have, but it wasn't as though we were watching. If anything happened, that would have been up to the security staff to, follow
That's
through.
what it's on the patrol loop for the blue shirts, as you as you said.
Correct,
Not
correct. I
scarf.
mean, it's posted, you're not supposed to be swimming at that area.
Right.
It's a boating beach only.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, because I know that a similar discussion has popped up every now and then.
Yep.
About that area too.
There were several
But
incident
there's no-
reports where people requested the lifeguard to come over and ask someone to stop swimming where the
Right.
catamarans or the Hobie cats
Right.
would come in.
Yep.
David, my
Yeah.
comments here are, and this is consistent, you said in the positive, the expectations were clear, they were clear with the staff. The public often expected or asked for lifeguards to do more than expectations. Is that
Yeah.
a fair takeaway?
Yeah, I think it came down to like, it all goes in with the the public education loop where they didn't know where the line was drawn in the sand, and so they were expecting, because there are lifeguards there, that they would take care of the entire beach rather than the section that they're actually guarding.
Got it. Okay.
Reed, I have a question about, given the past history of having difficulty recruiting and attracting experienced lifeguards in the past, what are we now doing to be able to attract and recruit good lifeguards for the future in the next season?
So as far as this upcoming season, I mean, everybody that I hired last year expressed like extreme interest in returning.
Yeah.
I haven't been too worried about next season. But I do think that
That's good.
yeah, keeping up with I think that the income hikes that the state is mandating as far as minimum wage, like keeping a hefty lead across that, because as soon as the minimum wage and the Ys reach $15 an hour, no one's going to want to guard a beach where there's a higher liability and higher risk when they can get paid the same amount to go, sit in a chair at the Y and not really have to work all that intensely. So I think that keeping a good wage difference between, the general pool lifeguarding and the beach will help a lot, as well as just kind of keeping good relations with the public as far as who's doing. I mean, most of the recruiting that I did went from swim teams and like making connections with other aquatic directors through pools and seeing whose staff got cut and who's looking for jobs. That's where most of my manpower came from, was from people that were displaced from either pools or town beaches that were no longer staffing, or from teams and coaches that had kids that were looking for jobs and they couldn't find one. And the pay, in terms of to answer your question about experience, that all comes with pay. I mean, there are a lot of lifeguards and there are a lot of bad lifeguards, and to keep the good ones staying with us, it all comes down to pay.
Which we're
just from a
doing. Which
just
we're
for a
trying to do.
ballpark. So can you speak to what was the current rate again to remind us? And then
So
do you have a recommendation?
We started with them.
$16 to $18 an hour.
Yeah.
What would you recommend for next year?
Like a 50 cent to $1 increase per, that's how I was breaking it up through experience, was every year they had equivocated to that much more. So, I mean, if we stuck to that trend and, bump the lowest amount up, however much, 50 cents to $1, and then kept that carried across throughout all the guards and through
It's typically like 25 to 50%, 50 cents each year.
Yeah.
Just a quick question, David, how much were the lifeguards at Hammonasset making?
I believe they're around 15, but they don't like when we hired people, we counted
Right.
years of experience in general. I think that they start everybody at 15, no matter how many years you've been guarding.
We were at
Just a quick
16. We were at 16 plus.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just this follow-up question, the certification, do we keep that now? How did we work that out with?
No, so it's all their own. So
It's all their own.
yep. So if they
Right.
chose to leave, they have their certification. And I think that is also a huge
Yeah.
factor as to why we were able to attract people. Because if if you go work at Hammonasset, you can't work over the winter at another pool and have a job because your certification is not your own.
Right.
We pay for the certification and they get to keep it.
Yep.
I believe so. Yeah.
Scott, are those increases in hourly rate that you mentioned already built into the budget?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Great. Awesome.
Absolutely.
David,
I
this
just
is,
wanted-
oh, go ahead,
Rob.
please.
I just wanted to speak to the performance of the guards. I mean, I think they have, in addition to their responsibilities, they were very much ambassadors in terms of how they interacted with the public. So not only were they really well trained, but they were courteous, and I think people responded very positively to their presence. So we always have to look at the fact that these, I mean, having working with patrol was one element, but the guards really helped. I think their PR with the townsfolk really helped make the whole thing work really well. So they're worth it. In other words, I really, the value of having them there was not only the safety, but also just improving public relations with, and the way they managed things. They were not overly, heavy-handed with the whistles. They did their job, and they were just great in terms of how they interacted positively with people. And I think David should be credited with hiring a really polite, courteous, and really an excellent staff. These are outstanding young people, and they did a really nice job this summer under tough circumstances. I know I keep saying that, but it needs to be stated really clearly how well they did.
And it's very encouraging to hear that they want to come back too.
Yeah, it's a real big bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That means, I mean, that means that the atmosphere that they experienced was good too. So
Yeah,
it worked both ways. Improvements were made both ways, which is great.
And David worked really hard to kind of build a team. He kind of treated the staff as a team, and he did a lot of bonding, a lot of team building, and it was really, David would be a great teacher. I'm going to recruit him into the profession at some point, but I know he has other plans. But he's a natural in terms of how he interacts with people, and I think a part of it was his leadership and building that camaraderie among the staff. They relied on one another because they had to, and because he kind of enforced that and forced them to to be a group and to work together as a team. And that was part of his, I think, what he did extremely well this summer.
That's
Thank you.
awesome. Thank you for that.
Great job. Yep.
David, the PR was critical. We were coming into a tough season, obviously COVID, the parking system. It was, so you guys were the face of the town for a lot of people. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Great insights, and looking forward to next year, and you have our support. Linda, we're going to move to you. Linda, you have the back office, front office. I think of you as, the systems and the process, but the floor is yours to speak to, what were you really happy with, and where do you think we should focus, administratively, or any area you'd like us to kind of listen to you share with us.
I was more in the office and dealing with the day-to-day stuff that was happening up there. I think everything that both Pete and David had said is spot on when it comes to the communication, because there are times where we were even frustrated because we didn't know what the situations were down at the beach, and we were getting inundated with phone calls as much as they're getting inundated with phone calls, and people just didn't have patience. It was just part of the frustration of that whole COVID experience. The frustration with seeing things that were being tweeted on social media about the Hammonasset State Park. Sometimes we would see or things weren't being, like you said, the time element weren't coming out as quickly as you would like, because we would be getting phone calls saying we were just at the state park's telling us that they're closed. And you go and you check the feed for Twitter, and they hadn't updated their feed yet. And then people are requesting us where we can send them, and what beaches do we have that would be allowing non-residents that came all the way from Massachusetts to come on down. And a lot of the times we would just tell them, it's like, look, before you leave, you really need to check their website and find out, what is going to be available. We're all at limited parking. There's not a lot of space for everybody. And, if I'm driving an hour to come down to the beach, I'm not turning around. I'm going to find another place. I'm going to look for a side road, and I'm going to go park. And a lot of people were really upfront in telling us that was exactly what they were planning on doing. They just wanted to know where our beach was, so I think that is something I don't know how you manage something like that. You know, I know we did do a lot of phone calling down to the beach just to find out what they were doing, what they were telling people, so that we were all on the same page. Because that was probably the most important part of it. As
And
far as
I think
what-
one of the big keys is that the state, we finally made an inroad to them for when they were going to be closing up.
Yeah.
They would call down to the surf club.
Right. Except we didn't
Say,
get that
hey, Hey,
notification.
we're closed.
Right.
You know, so heads up. So our staff was given the heads up saying, oh, here we go. Everybody's
Right.
coming to us. Pete, watch out.
And
David,
towards the
watch
end of the
out.
summer, they started posting it on 95 on the
Yeah,
overheads.
Yeah.
I think
then
as
when people are
far
coming
as
all the-
Greenwich, I saw it one time.
Yeah, but the problem is that, you know, if somebody's leaving the house at 7 o'clock in the morning and
Right.
the beach closes at 9, they're already halfway here, and
Right.
they're ticked off because they've been sitting in line and been told they have to go away.
right.
Yeah.
And that was the most of the people were just venting. They were just frustrated with the fact that they couldn't go anywhere, and that how dare nobody's able to go anywhere. It's like, yeah, well, try being on our side of it where we're giving the bad news to everybody too.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so I can vouch 100% that, you know, the staff gets the brunt.
Definitely a
Of-
shoot the messenger situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so with that being said, I think now we have a year under our belt, and we've already weathered probably most the worst of what could possibly happen, and know some of the things. Like if you need to get the traffic shut down on the main street versus coming down the side streets, then that would be something that the police would have to be aware of to try to mitigate that for us. Because again, like David said, you take the staff, or Pete, you take the staff outside of the property, it becomes more problematic. You know, what
Mhm.
jurisdiction do they really have when you're out on the town road versus the park property itself? And then there's also the risk of who's able to assist them when they're that far off of the property to be doing the job that's technically they were hired to be doing inside the property.
Mhm.
Right.
So, you know, those are things that, you know, we're a year savvier in knowing some of the frustrations that you have to contend with. I think the other part of it is that we had a lot of information that was coming in hourly, you know, where the job functions were constantly changing. You know, you're thinking about approaching it this way, and then all of a sudden you have to deviate and go into a different direction with it. So that was something that, you know, we were doing everything on the fly, you know, down there as much as I could tell, you know, from sitting in the office. You know, we were getting changing things in the office on an hourly basis as well. So that was something that, you know, if we'd only had the information to tell us that we're going to be doing it this way and stay consistent with being able to do something before you had to change it and do something different. And I think that became frustrating for the residents, because they're like, well, you did it this way yesterday and now you're doing it this way today. And it's like, yeah, you couldn't get that information out to the public that quick as to, you know, okay, this weekend we're doing it this way. Next weekend we've had a different plan and approach, and we're going to be doing it that way. And as we all have seen, people just like to complain about the situation, and instead of giving constructive suggestions on how to work through the process, they rather just criticize everything that you do. And it's hard, because that's not the intent that the department or the town wants to do to its residents.
So just to summarize, make sure I got it on this point. I mean, this is really under that communication bucket. There were changes from hourly. If not, we did one thing one weekend, it was different the next weekend or daily. That Hamo relationship sounds like we built a relationship, but understanding who owns it and how will they communicate. And to your point, Linda, let's hope that we've seen the worst and we don't have some of those situations. If I got it on the communication piece, I'm curious, I'm sure the group is curious. How did ticket sales go for you this year? It was online, you guys had to mail them out. What was the feedback from the staff? What was your experience? What worked well? What do we need to change?
You mean as far as the pass system goes, Rob?
Mm-hmm.
I think it went really well. Transition from the previous year, people found it. It was labor intensive at first, because there was a ton of mail-in
Mhm.
applications, and where we'd be servicing trays from the post office and entering them in the
Lots of
system.
trays.
Lots of trays. MP knows. But given that, once everything went online, I mean, a lot of that was pre-online. Once we went online, I think it went a ton smoother. It ends up being for us a daily report that we have to print out where we see where people bought passes online. And then regenerating their receipt and entering in their information and then mailing it out.
Mhm.
It's going to be the same this year, but that being said, this year should be okay, I'm not going to say 100%. 75, 80%. Let's go with that. Better, because people are going to be able to go in to their household and renew their membership.
Mhm.
Okay, so once they renew their membership and pay for it, we will then, as we do daily, we do a daily revenue report and past detail report. We will see all those that have renewed their permit from last year. Once we have that, we will issue out their new tag and mail it to them. It's already paid for. We just have to send it off in the mail. So I have a gym. It's almost like a gym membership. You know, it's an annual membership. Yep, I'm going to renew what I had last year. I had a BA1, BA2, BA3, BA4. Okay, I have 4 cars. This is the cost. I'm paying it. And then we'll send out the stickers to the household.
Scott, quickly, when are you going to start that, you think?
Minimum April 1st.
Great.
You know, so I mean, and that's where we've been starting
Mhm.
beach pass sales for the past several years, but we will end up sending out a reconnect through all the people through our registration system saying, hey, it's time to renew your beach pass. This is what you bought last year. You can renew it. If there's any changes, they're gonna have to send it in writing. Yeah, I changed this plate to this. You know, it's no longer this. I mean, we'll have to go through those gyrations, but it should be pretty damn smooth to get their new passes. We'll mail them out to them and they're done.
Super.
Scott,
Yep.
have you been giving any thought to the rates? I know that we've talked in the past.
We do have to look at that, and glad you brought that up because I want to try to bring it forth to the Board of Selectmen because they have the overall. I think we should increase the beach pass rates as well as the gym rates and put it together in a package with the boat racks. So it's all one package. We can do that in January. But what I was looking at, what I was thinking is the adult rate would go from 40 to 50. with the secondary cars going from 20 to 30. Seniors would go up to 20 with their second, third, and fourth cars at 10. And the vet pass would go to 20, which would be is basically the senior rate. And then the gym rates, I'm looking at going from 80 to 100 for adults. Seniors would go from 20 to 40. And then the youth pass would go to, and I'm throwing it out there, to $30. We were only charging $5 for the kids to come in, and invariably they kept on losing them, but maybe this will help. And basically the gym rates are to try to offset the cost of the staff being paid to be there to monitor what's going on. But
The gym rates haven't changed in a long time, right?
no, we have not changed. God, thanks, MP. I don't know. It's been like, God, 10 years.
Easily, yeah.
It's easily 10 that it's been $40 for the beach.
Yeah.
And I think we have to offset, the rates of labor have gone up. As David had mentioned, the rates as far as the lifeguards go, we're looking between $16 and $18 an hour for each guard. So we have to try to offset that. And it can't be, it needs to move more towards the user and not just the tax base.
Yeah.
I think.
It'll just be important to point out that it hasn't been increased for as long.
Correct.
When you start talking about it to the public,
Yep. And I think we can decide that in December or January.
Yeah.
When we have our meeting, I'll get all the background as to how long it's been.
Yeah.
It's been that way forever, seems like, right, Linda?
Oh, yeah.
So I think it's time to move up.
Yeah.
And make it equitable. I know people are paying taxes, but we do have the operational costs that are not cheap anymore. So I know, Vince. I know. I know. You don't even have to say anything, Vince.
Okay,
Well,
I'll wait till
I don't know.
January. I'll save it all up to January.
There you go.
But
I don't
to
know
put
what
it
you're
in
thinking.
Merry
perspective,
Christmas.
you're
Yeah.
not going to get gym memberships for anywhere near any of those dollar amounts.
No.
I was wondering if I could just add one more thing. I actually have to sign off right after this, but I just wanted, there was one thing that occurred to me that's not about gym memberships and Beach Pass. I know you folks have a lot to talk about in that regard, but one of the things I wanted to bring up in terms of communication and an essential element to what we're doing on the beachfront was the communication between maintenance and basically what we're trying to do with, and basically my job and the maintenance crew, how we can communicate better. One of the things that I would love to have or love to know, which I sort of learned through experience, having, if the bathrooms were closed in one of the area beaches, I had to kind of go through this process of trying to communicate, and there wasn't a clear line of communication between, beach and rec and maintenance. So I would love, in the ideal world would be to have a liaison, to have like a designated person that, with whom anyone, or I could, or one of my designated folks like David could just go up to this person and say, listen, we got to get the bathrooms open at West Wharf, and make it that simple. A phone number, a radio, some kind of communication where we could definitely work together. That was the other sort of sticking point that I didn't when I'm reflecting about, you were asking about what's important and what really needs to work, we need to work on, that would be a critical element for me for next year, because those facilities, people would come to us and we didn't have the ability to just turn around and contact anyone. A lot of times I ended up calling Scott, and he would then call the person. And I think that's sort of a little dysfunctional in terms of how it could be better. That's all and I know there's been a long history in the way things are done, but a designated person would be super helpful.
Yeah, I think, Pete, a lot of what happened this summer was an anomaly.
Yeah.
Typically what ended up happening is not what typically happens. We had to close down bathrooms half an hour prior to cleaning. And, so the guys were trying to go around and doing the best they could. And they were stretched out too, trying to figure it all out. Because everything had to settle. And I understand that completely. I thought we had tried to post on the building, okay, this is going to be shut down at this time. So there was a sign, and when it was cleaned and what have you, and I can make sure that does occur.
Sure.
Okay, kind of like when you go into a restaurant, okay, yeah, this facility was cleaned on such and such at such and such. It's just we had to shut things down and drop them out in order to have the guys stay safe while they were cleaning.
Absolutely. And again, this is just,
Sure.
it'd be great to have just that communication, or a designated person that's like, okay,
Yep.
a matter of a phone call, a radio call, a text, something like that, so that
Sure.
we don't have to go through channels to kind of get that kind of communication together.
I agree.
That's all I was saying.
I just want to butt in for a second. I 100% agree with you, Pete, and I think that like the bathrooms obviously are the thing that stick out to us the most, but I think that it comes down to more than that. I mean, like there was like a section of the boardwalk that was apart, and we would bring it up to one member of the maintenance staff, and then it wouldn't work its way up the chain to whoever needed to hear it, so that way it would get taken care of. And I think that having a more clear path of communication to the maintenance staff would help to cut out on more than just the what bathrooms closed and what bathrooms open, but as to like what in the park actually needs to be fixed that the security staff and the lifeguard staff notice, and they just didn't. Some of it never actually made it to maintenance.
Did you guys have a weekly staff meeting by chance? Meeting where maintenance, lifeguard, beachfront, UP? Okay.
Well, we don't so that connection between maintenance and patrol just never happened. And so I feel like that was a point where when we made a recommendation, it wasn't an attempt to try to tell maintenance what we needed to get done. It was just to recommend. Usually it was feedback from the townspeople who said, hey, the bathrooms at West need attention. And it would come back to us, and we would tell maintenance. And it wasn't a matter of, we weren't trying to step on anyone's toes. We were just trying to relay information. And it's so the vehicle to do that, to facilitate that kind of communication, to make it easier without judgment. It wasn't, we're just relaying information, would be great, so that, maintenance would understand we're just communicating the needs as expressed by residents.
And that's the purpose even for, I hope that both you and David and everyone can take from this call, which is it's that important to hear from you, to understand what worked and what didn't, so that we can make it better. And so there's definitely room, and it starts with you guys getting the feedback. So and you have a great example too. I think it's one thing to say people this, or we get feedback, but to be able to say, look, we had a challenge, we communicated it, and was it the right path? And let us help you with that. So this is good.
I appreciate that too. So
good. Okay, so we are at 8. I know, Pete, you have to leave. We're a little bit after 8 o'clock right now. It's 8:20. We're scheduled to go till 9 o'clock. We wanted to collect the feedback, and then we wanted the commission to be able to, kind of go through the other elements with Scott. So David, Pete, Linda, you by all means are welcome to spend your Tuesday evening with us. Scott, we're going to keep you here.
Yeah, I want to leave.
But let's kind of go through this. We asked everyone to go through a number of items here. I took some notes to maybe add, recruiting. It sounds like things look good, but is that a question we may not address all of these today. Fees and rates. Scott already took us through the recommendation. We're going to have that presented to us at the January meeting with the historical view and the reason for it. So that's great. The items that are on here are, the sales process to residents and non-residents. Are the hours by beach right? Is staffing right? Are lifeguards, is there a need to add change? Gate guards, add change. Parking capacity. I think it's safe to say that I'm going to make this statement. That doesn't mean it's true or fact. The policy procedures that were in place for COVID will continue to act until we're asked to make a change, meaning the state doesn't need us to do that. The first select woman doesn't require us to do that. But I feel like we have those prepared, but that probably deserves its own discussion. That would be capacity management. And then, the communication came up, Hammond Asset Overflow, that came up. I added a couple things on a document I sent out, and we had asked everyone just to give feedback. So we really wanted to make sure we provided an opportunity tonight for MP, for Pam, for Vince. Shane's not here. How do we get feedback from you? What have you heard from residents? What would you like to see? And then have some discussion on that. So if anyone would like to start, they can jump in on any topic, or, we'll open it up to the floor. So everyone's happy with everything.
Well,
So I will.
Can I
Go ahead, Vince.
just jump in here and say?
I knew Vince would start.
I
That's
didn't
the goal.
I didn't want you to leave, Scott. No, it seems to me that the whole basis of most of the, I don't want to say complaints, but issues seem to be communication. I think we could probably spend the whole meeting talking about how do we communicate, not only with the residents of Madison, but, within the department and within, each individual at the department. How do we communicate better? And as I said, I think we could spend the whole meeting on that. I think it's, that's my only contribution, is that it seems like we just don't, get the message out quick enough. We because of COVID, the message is not clear because of, what the changes were with COVID every day, every hour almost. So that complicated things this year as well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, Vince, is it's not it's not departmentally. It's town spread.
Mm.
We are not. I don't know how to put it. Linda would probably be better. We don't, as a town, we don't react that fast because there's too many steps in the process to get it out to everybody.
So are we unique in that aspect? I mean, are we different than other towns? I mean,
Well, I think a lot of it is, some, how do I say this tactfully?
it's okay.
It's hard to have a full town being controlled by one webmaster. I guess is the best. We have a town website, and anything that we want to get on to the town website has to go through the webmaster. And then we do try to do stuff on Facebook. Linda's done a good job at that. but it's like, okay, how many switches are we gonna have in order to get the word out? You
And you're
know,
not saying
some
they're not
people.
doing a good job. It's just not a nimble
Exactly,
structure.
exactly. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, what direction are people looking? Are they going to the town website? Are they going to
Right.
Facebook? Are they going to the Madison page?
Mhm.
Are they going to the
First selectmen's
the-
page.
first selectman's page? Or what's the other one, Linda? This, like the source
The patch,
Right. Patch. Yeah.
patch. Yes,
Patch,
I
yeah.
mean, so there's so many venues. It's like, how do you catch them all
Right.
to try to get the information
One
out?
message. One
Right.
message out.
One
that's the
message to
same.
all of them.
Right.
And then the opposite side of that is that you have to encourage or allow or expect people to be looking for the information themselves too. A lot of people are like, I didn't know that, and
Mhm.
they aren't actively looking for the information either,
Right.
which is
And
sort
then,
of the other
and
side of
then,
that.
and to that point, okay, I'm on the connector and I'm told that Hammonasset's closed.
yeah,
So they Google beaches, Madison,
Right.
okay, and it directs them, first beach is East Wharf.
Yep.
How can we block that?
Right.
I mean, it's like, you know, you're going from, okay, I'm stopped here, we need to go someplace, so we go Google, and then, okay, are we on Google to say, yeah, we're at capacity, you can't
Right.
be there.
There's a vast mismatch in scale too when you're going, oh, Hammonasset to East Wharf.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think we as a department are struggling with that, and I think the town in itself is struggling with that, to try to get the information out in a timely manner. But there's so many formats out there now. It's like, how can you cover them all?
Right. It's almost impossible. You
Right,
can make your best effort to streamline your ability to get messages out to, your official spots, but
Right.
you can't necessarily control the other end of that equation as far as what people are looking for and finding.
right.
well, from my own personal experience, my wife has been on Facebook, the website, Linda, that you put out, which is great. It's, up to date. It has things going on, what's new, what's not new, what's happening in the town. It's great. So if that works and Patch works, do we have can we use Patch?
We do have access to make articles for Patch, but I don't know exactly. Carrie's been doing a lot of those, writing the articles for them, because you're like a self-reporter.
Yeah.
But
Patch is on a day-to-day basis, right? I mean, every day.
And the more people that talk about it, it gets moved to the top of the feed, similar to
Right.
the stuff that Facebook does,
Right.
is my understanding. So, I just think that whatever it is that we're going to use, it really needs one person that's kind of managing it to make sure the message is going to be uniformed every time it gets put out. The one thing that I was going to say on our own town website, sometimes you go to the town website and it's posted on one part of the web page. People are going on and they're looking at a department page and they can't find the information, even though it's sitting right there. It's not like you can print it in one location and it spreads it to 4 or 5 different places on the page. And that's the thing I think is getting frustrating, because people do want to do that one click and find that information right there. And then you also need to make sure that it's up to date, because if it goes obsolete within an hour, then you need to try to retract it and put the new information out. But people are sharing all these posts as well. Is what I'm finding, like with the Facebook, which scares me a little bit, is that you could put something out there and then all of a sudden it's shared to 4 or 5 other pages in town.
Yeah.
And now the information's wrong.
Yeah.
And you can't pull it back. That's the problem.
I see. So you lose
So-
control.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing, I mean, the need is, what's the one source of truth? Because there's multiple venues and there's timing with that. And then number 2 is who makes these decisions? Because
Correct.
part of it is once a decision is made, does that person have a venue? So, and that's a bigger thing that needs to be solved for, but
I mean, I think that's why we were relying on the select woman's comments.
Correct.
You know,
And that could
she
be-
was the gospel sending everything out. This is what's going on.
To
That's a
everybody.
delay.
That
That's a
could be
delay.
the solution for the beach season. When you think about our limited beach season and what it means, independent of COVID, we think about 4th of July and fireworks. How do we create that one source of truth that is in real time?
I think it has to come from the first selectman's office. This is what we're doing. This is how the town's going to be operating. A, B, C, and D. You can't park here. You can park here. This is when traffic's going to get shut down, etc.
And so that might be a recommendation that the commission comes up with, which is based on feedback, based on need. When information and decisions are made, it will come from that one source.
Yep.
And we believe that should be the first select person.
I mean, I think that's the proper place for it to come from.
And that's easy enough. If the director makes a choice, if anything comes, that we can forward it on to the first select person, and they can, in the situation, Peggy can say, okay, this is the communication, it's drafted.
Right.
And
I mean, that's how we've been dealing with the long-term recovery committee and everything else that's been happening in the town when we've had to shut things down, when events have been scaled back. Everything's had to go through this long-term recovery committee and get approval for events to happen. So it does come from the top down. And that also rings true with the emergency operations committee as far as where things happen.
Scott, realistically, how frequent do these communications need to be? Because I mean, I'm hearing is it once a day? Is it multiple times during
the long-term recovery committee meets every 2 weeks, but Peggy, the first select woman, gives an update each Friday.
Okay, so it's a weekly update.
A weekly update, yep. Right now. And I think during the summer she was doing it probably 2 times a week at least.
What was the venue for that? Was it email, voicemail? Facebook?
She was doing the Everbridge. It was a phone call, but it was also posted on the website.
It's an
Town
opt-in.
website.
And
it's an opt-in to get it, to receive it. And she's urging people to sign up for it. So they're all apprised of it.
We could go down a rabbit hole on this one. There's probably a lot of reasons that we couldn't do it. I know, but I don't think Peggy has an Instagram, and I don't know that we would recommend it, but let's just say she did. And people were following her is that, because the other piece of this is real-time data. How does someone get an update at Friday night? There were situations where it was Friday night and Peggy was having meetings to get approval for signs to put in the ground Saturday morning.
Right.
How do you, does the commission think that's something worth saying, that, if at the very least, we need a real-time solution that's beyond something people opt in for?
Yeah, I don't have an answer, Rob.
Yeah.
You just want to funnel people to one source to get the
Correct.
information, but it's how quickly someone's going to be able to. It's usually the person that's overseeing that meeting that's going to be the one that's going to have to put it out there. And if that happens at 10 o'clock at night, they may be up until 11 o'clock trying to formulate what they're going to say and how they're going to present it. And hopefully they did it right. that's real time, unfortunately.
Is the individual that does the updates to the webpage, is that part of a role that they have other responsibilities, or is it solely communication, solely web?
She is on the Board of Ed side, and she's the town webmaster, dealing with Board of Ed as well as town side.
But during the work week, right? Like she's not
Correct.
expected to be doing that on the weekend.
Not 24/7, no.
Right, yeah.
But is that, that's her position, Scott? Is that that's her position? Webmaster?
Webmaster, yes.
That's her role, her job evaluation?
I believe so, yes. You would know that better.
No, I
than
know,
do.
that's why I'm asking. I've never seen that job description in the job evaluation committee. I've never, ever seen that job.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
I think
it's a shared.
Shared
shared, that's
position
what I'm
between
asking.
Board of Ed and town.
Okay,
so. When there is when the school is closed,
She posts it.
she has, and then what time? So I mean, I think
She
I think at
posted
the
when she gets the information.
right. So I think, you know, unfortunately, there's a lens of COVID and some of the chaos that, you know, we were forced to deal with this year, and we're trying to. And the reason for this meeting is so that we can get ahead of it, but. I think it's reasonable that if the first select woman were to have a change or an announcement that would benefit the community.
She sends it, she gets it sent out.
Yeah, and that we could, you know, the website could be, if there's a direct line between the first select woman and the webmaster, and it needs to be out Friday night or Saturday morning, I think that's something we could at least say at the discretion of the first select person.
That does happen, but what I think Pete was referring to is something was happening on Saturday. And it's like, okay, how do we get it out?
Right.
You know, during the day.
It's difficult to expect Rita to be available on
24/7.
every summer weekend to post at like 11 o'clock that the surf club is closed, and then to post again at 1 o'clock that it's reopened. But
Right,
that's
a lot.
really kind of too much to expect from that.
Anybody.
Right.
Anybody.
Is there a way on the main website, like say on the town website homepage, to have an icon or something, especially for beach season, where they click on that and it automatically takes them to either a Facebook page or an Instagram feed or something that then is controlled, that can be controlled by the Beach and Rec department staff to give more up-to-date information in real time, so that so you can find the link easily on the town website, but it takes you then to another application or platform that can be updated more frequently.
There's a way to put it there. The front page is pretty crowded with, you know, there's about 10 priority things on the banner page right now. So you end up jostling for space over other things.
But I would think that beach season is a priority.
There usually is something there that goes to the Beach and Rec page for beach passes and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's not going to be a one-click link. It's still probably going to be 2 pages deep, because it'll probably take you to the Beach and Rec page, and then there would be something on the Beach and Rec page for the Beach and Rec Insta. But, you know,
It couldn't be just something beach update.
No,
Pam,
I hear where you're going. That if,
Beach and Rec beach season, but it would include going to the page that also has the link to beach passes. It's not going to be one thing. It's probably going to be 2 things.
Right.
You know what I mean?
if it's important for the customer resident experience during the beach season to be updated, or to have you know, we have to come up with a solution. If that means that the director would have an Instagram page, and that there would be a link on the town page that says, check this Instagram page for, you know, up to the minute updates and changes, that might be something we need to explore. It comes down to who's got the information, who's making the decisions, and 2, how do we make it real time? And right now we have and MP, it's a great example. I wouldn't expect Rita to be on standby on Saturday 11 to get a call from the surf club that says we're
Yeah.
closing the parking lot, and then another call at 1 saying it turn it on.
Right.
That
That's not
it's,
gonna
you
work.
know, that's not going to work. So I think, Vince, the point about communication is that we will surface that this needs to be addressed. We won't address it tonight. I think we've uncovered that one source of truth, real-time updates, needs to be a solution. We don't have that solution, but we need to deliver that for this season.
Yep.
Any other comments on that, or anyone feel there's something that we want to capture to follow up on? Okay. So Kristen, that's that's an action item, one source of truth, real-time updates during beach season, and how do we do that? And that needs to be addressed. Thanks, Vince, that is a big underlying issue. Any other items that I had submitted kind of an example of things that were popping up in my mind, things that I had heard. Anything else that anyone feels strongly about that we need to start doing or stop doing? Vince is laughing.
Oh, I'm not laughing. I brought up in one of the meetings, I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I wanted to find out from Scott where we were on the police patrolling during the July 4th weekend. At least having to take some of the pressure off the gate guards, to have some backup for them in the event that, we had some issues. July 4th weekend, Memorial Day, and Labor Day. Those are it seems like the critical periods when we have some issues, possibly with gate guard.
I think we just have to address that with Jack and Joe to make sure that we do have adequate beach coverage. I think they upped a lot of the beach coverage this summer, being down to the east and whatever. We did have patrols going along Middle Beach down to the surf club and back. So I think that worked. And obviously they know the peak times. So thankfully we didn't have, I shouldn't say that. Thankfully we didn't have the fireworks, but we didn't. I don't know what's going to happen this summer, but I'm sure everything will be staffed.
Well, Vince, if I could, I've noticed over the years it went from West Wharf being open and then they started to close it earlier. I think they've made improvements. I think they are present. I think if we were to ask Chief Drum, what his plans are, how they prepare for it, I think it's a pretty extensive plan. Right. I think your question is also a fair one, but I think we would want to present to Chief Drum, these are our needs or concerns. It's one thing to be made aware, and I think that goes to communication with the town. This is what the police will be doing. This is what their extra staffing is. They usually run at this. They are probably doing more than we are aware. That doesn't mean that if there aren't additional needs, but I think we would have to go to Chief Drum and say, these are the needs that we think we have. So I think it's a fair question, but I'm not prepared to say there's unmet needs around these weekends. Not to say there isn't, but I'm not aware of them. But I don't know if there's other feedback or Pam, MP, or Scott, what's the process? I don't think we just show up.
I think we just did. I think we can talk to Jack and, maybe we can, at some point have a conversation between the Beach and Recreation Commission and the Police Commission. Have a joint meeting and discuss concerns that we have at the beach during the summers and say, hey, how can you help us? Because it's not just Jack dictating what's going to happen. He has the police commission that he reports to, just as I do to you. And maybe it's a joint meeting between the two commissions. Say, hey, this is what we got. Yeah, this is what we saw this summer. We know you helped out, but moving forward, how can we get better service or more cooperation and and go on. So we have that coverage and backup. So we're not feeling as a staff that we're left out in the cold.
You want me to make that?
Well, I think what we can do, Vince, is Rob can actually, he can reach out to the chairman of the police commission and say,
Right.
hey, we'd like to have a joint meeting and to discuss the summer. Because I think we've had, in the past, we've had youth that are going into law enforcement, and they were doing tickets downtown and what have you. And maybe we need to try to bring that back to help out with instances, as Rob's pointed out, is the 2-hour parking at West Wharf.
Mhm.
It's like, well, who's controlling that? That's not a beach and rec function. That is, it's posted for municipal lot use, 2-hour. It's not us, not for us to say, okay, well, okay, Vince, your car XYZ has been there for 4 hours and that to get a ticket. That's up to the PD. They're the traffic enforcement control of the town. We shouldn't be writing tickets.
So Vince, I think, yeah, I think what would be helpful, Vince, is how do we collectively as a commission actually come prepared to a meeting that says, these are things we've seen, these are the questions we have, what, and then, you know, questions for the commission, what do they see, what are their pain points? I think that's more than reasonable, and then try and you know, we can plan that joint meeting maybe in February.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like if we wanted to talk to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I mean, that's up to you guys as a commission. If you want to talk to another commission, we can certainly set a meeting up.
Like when we brought in the academy group. I mean, it's more about just to get informed and to understand. So I love the idea, Vince. I mean, even the idea that the police get familiar with our lifeguards and our summer staff. I mean, if there's a relationship between the kids and the police, that relationship overall is there's more support and rapport between the two. And just kind of creating that exposure. I'll work with Scott to communicate with the commission and Chief Drum and I think for us to understand before we bring people together and invite them for a meeting, we should have some topics that we would want to discuss or questions and give them the chance to do the same for us. So Vince, if you want to kind of take that as a, you know, solicit from others in the community or from this commission here, you know, what questions we have. And I think Scott gave us a great example. You know, we have an issue with West Wharf 2-hour and the volume of people, you know, and then we've got the holidays. Okay. Thanks for bringing that up, Vince. And that's a great action item to take on. Any other items that anyone wants to comment on? I'll put one out there. I had talked to Scott over the summer. I noticed that they rake, I think it's the east side of West Wharf, and I guess we don't rake all of it. In some of the response in the past, this wasn't the immediate response. Scott shared, you know, historically, that if you rake one beach, then other people ask, why don't we rake all the beaches? And, you know, given the limited summer season, do we think that, and Scott, I don't know what the cost is, I don't know the capability, but are we raking the surf club? And you know, do we rake, even if it meant we had to rake a portion of the hotel frontage, just as a means to beautify the beach for residents and guests? I mean, is that something that, is it cost prohibitive? Is it staffing?
I'm not saying it's going to be cost prohibitive, but the area of beach that we have on the west side of the parking lot is a triangle.
Yeah.
So the majority is the hotel property. And that's why we don't do it, because if we were to go over onto our side, it's mainly shells. And that's where we used to have the lifeguard. and we're watching a maybe 30 by 50 triangle. And at high tide, it's water, but when you go to low tide, it's rock.
Right.
So we
Do
don't
rake the surf?
we don't rake the west side of the parking lot at west. East side where the boats are, we do as much as we can with the ropes. So that is raked. We do East Wharf, both sides, and we do the surf club.
Okay, and I would imagine too, there's also residents have beaches, and all it takes is one resident that says, I don't want my beach raked. So it kind of, I don't know what would happen.
Right. I mean, I do bring, when we do rake, we are in on overtime. So we'd have to build that into the budget.
So all raking is overtime, or?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
They're in early because we have to get it done before the people come down to the beach and get inconvenienced if we're cleaning the beach. So we're down there at like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, raking the beach. So, I mean, and we do that at least 3 times a week throughout the summer. And
okay, so other than West Wharf, on the west side, all beaches are raked 3 times a week. So it is happening. And
yes,
what we're not raking is in front of the hotel
correct.
and those homes in between Surf
Correct.
Club and the hotel.
That would be a very timely, time-consuming project if we were to
That's a
go.
long stretch, yeah.
It's a
Okay.
long stretch.
Of
Long
private
stretch.
property.
What's
It's
that,
what?
MP?
It's a stretch of private property.
Right.
Right. Yeah, and the beach hotel has approached us a couple of times over my tenure, and it's been the stance that we don't, as a precedent, due to the fact that it's private.
Yeah.
My personal opinion is that if we have the equipment out there and maybe not doing all the residents because it is private, and it does, I have already expressed challenges with parking from hotel guests on the, at the expense of residents. So, that's an ongoing issue. But at the same time, if we have the equipment and we could, offer that to a small segment of the town's beach, and if the hotel beach benefits at a minimal additional cost because of the size of it, I wanted to put that out there and say if we felt that added value to the community or the town, that would the commission even entertain that? But again, I think until we understood the cost and if there was support for that, I think that would be up to the commission to make that recommendation.
I mean, I would just guard against opening that floodgate. I know it's a small area, but then do you go, okay, the beach club wants their beach raked. Do you want Seaview Beach, which is a big beach? Would they want their beach raked?
I think, those
I don't know where it would stop.
well, those are, I think if the beach hotel is asking for it, and you're right, if you said yes to them, then how do you say no to other beaches?
Right.
But if you're over there because you're raking a small beach, and even where the east side of West Wharf is a small beach, it's a beautiful beach. If you're out there and you're raking it as a relationship, if it's a choice to do that, but or for a fee, I don't know if the beach hotels even said we'll pay you,
Right.
the fee to do it. And if Seaview came forward and said, we'd like to pay you to do that, then that would be something that the director of the beach commission would decide to do. But, you know, I was more curious at how often we did rake it. Should we be doing it? And do we extend that as an offer if we're going to be over there? So.
I hear you.
I'd be raking it. I would be taking care of our beaches, every little nook and cranny I could. And I think the team does a great job of that. And I think if we could rake, I just see other beaches in other communities, or whether it's in New Jersey or other beaches. And I think that they look so great when we do that. And it's a real pride of the town. So the staff should be commended. Any other discussion on that topic or any others? Scott, the subject of the bathrooms on West Wharf, that's something that's been moved up. It's a cesspool, which is
That's putting it.
Well, I mean, I think everyone should understand that it's a cesspool that is working on drainage there. And I think you had said the building has been there since you joined the staff. Do you know if that's something that will be completed before beach season or not even close?
Well, it's in CNRE. It's not, I don't believe it's this year, it's next year. We will be getting cost estimates if the CNRE is approved. Peggy put it on the list prior to Rockland. We kind of flip-flopped. So I'll be getting cost estimates next year. I think it's next year is the study phase, where I'd get cost estimates, and then the following year would be the implementation.
Got it.
And what I'm looking for is trying to get a vault style building, but it would have running water, so it would have to be pumped out more frequently, but it would not be a dry system. So I think it would be more pleasant for the people, but it would definitely be vault style, so it's self-contained, so it's not leaching out into the Long Island Sound. So, which is kind of good.
When it's raked, it looks really nice over there on that side. Okay, so it looks like bathroom is summer 22, and
Can I just ask a comment? Does that, how do we get away with that? With the
It's existing.
is it exist? That's grandfathered in. I mean, existing.
Yes.
is it?
Well, can we get some help from the state?
Don't go there, Ben.
All right. Okay.
Well, I mean, I think it's a recorded meeting. I mean,
it's held up, but it's time. I mean, I've been with the department since '79, and the building was there before me. It's time to get upgraded. It's small, it's dark,
No, I know.
needs to be
I know.
changed.
no,
Can
but
we get some help from the state?
Does Trent inspect that on an annual basis? I don't even know that he needs to. I have no idea.
No, I don't believe so, no. I mean, we did have the one problem, and it wasn't, I don't believe it wasn't our bathroom that caused the problem. There was a problem with the Madison Beach Hotels system at one point. So, but I just think it's time that we've upgraded East Wharf Surf Club. It's time for West Wharf to get some attention. So
great. So thank you for that, Scott. We are coming up on the hour, and we had asked for any other comments or for anyone. No one is. So I feel like silence is representing that the system that Scott has put in place and how he operated as a baseline or foundationally, hours of operation, et cetera, will stand. based on recommendations. We talked about lifeguard and hourly rates. We talked about communication, and I think we got some really good feedback, some specific things. I'll work with Scott. I'll review some of my notes here. Kristen will capture these in the minutes. And the objective is to be able to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. And as Scott said at the outset, we will be putting forth a fee structure. We'll talk about it in January. We'll take a vote. It'll include the boat racks. It'll include the passes and the gym. And Scott wants to kind of bundle that all together. So that'll be an action item coming out of this. Another action item is Vince will collect feedback on the relationship that we have or could have with the police commission, based on them asking us questions and us asking questions and kind of having that discussion as a group. Anything else that I missed or anything else you guys would add?
The only thing in January, we have to approve the meeting calendar,
Yes.
which I'll send out, as well as election of officers for the year.
Excellent.
And also I'll send out just the what we have as far as our meeting schedule now. I'll send that out. I think the first few meetings at least are going to still be Zoom, and then hopefully we can get back to meeting in person. So but I think I have it January through at least March that we would be Zoom.
Okay.
And then we'll go back, hopefully back into town hall. So
Good stuff. Thank you everyone for making time this evening. It was a very informative meeting and is really designed to set us up for a successful beach season next year. So Linda, David, I know Pete has left, and Scott and MP, Pam, Vince, Kristen, thank you all for your time this evening. Have a great night. Stay safe during the storm. I know everyone will be busy. And if we don't speak, have a wonderful holiday, and we will talk in January. Thanks,
sure.
everyone.
And to you all as well. Kristen, I noticed on here there's a one chat. Is that anybody of the public?
That was just from Pete. He just said, thank you to everybody.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I just read it. I guess
Oh,
it's
okay.
everybody.
Okay.
Okay.
Have a nice holiday, everybody.
Yeah.
So just a
too.
quick motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Vince, second. Pam, all in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
Thanks,
Vince.
everyone. Have a great night.
Vince, you sold all the trees.
Yeah, we sold them all, Scott. They're all gone. Every one of
Good
them.
for you.
And we cut the big ones in half. And sold
There you go.
them.
So now I can take the portal, and now I can take the portalet out of the.
Yeah,
out of-
yes. Thank you for all your help. Thank you.
Okay.
I should have said that before.
Take
Thank you.
care.
Good night.
Have a great holiday.
Night.
All right,
Take care,
guys.
everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.